Mr. Happy Living here, and I'm happy to be broadcasting from WYTV7 in the beautiful Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina, USA. Hey friends, please, just for a minute, imagine how amazing you'd feel living the unique and distinct life you were put on this planet to live, doing work you love, with people you love, in places you love, and all the while creating something of real value to others. Well, that's what I call a life of significance, and I can tell you it makes a very happy life. And so can Scott Jordan. He's my guest star today, and he's here to share his unique and distinct journey to his life of significance. But before we bring him on, I'd like to share a poem that we created just to thank him for being our guest star today. It's called A Billion Raised, A World to Save, and it goes like this. Through biotech heights, he carved his way, raising millions to save the day. Mergers, deals, and ventures bold, Scott's journey is a story to behold. With gene therapy and breakthroughs in sight, he fights for health with all his might. Building futures, crafting change, Scott's impact is vast and wide in range. Tune in, listen up, and be inspired by a life lived fully and purpose fired. Scott's wisdom, grit, and drive so true might just spark the significance within you. Hey, Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, man. Great to be here.
Why don't you just get us started by telling us, what are you doing these days to make your mark of significance on the world?
Well, my day job, I'm a life science investment banker, but that's we're funding treatments for cancer and in cardiovascular disease, et cetera, infectious diseases, and but the real area of significance is raising spirits. Aptly named for our goal in Central America, specifically Honduras, on the island of Roatan is where we've started, and we're a craft spirits company making vodka out of breadfruit, with a percentage of the revenues going to a 501c3 called the Abundant Life Foundation, which is a group that was started by my partner, who owns the only 5-star hotel in Roatan called the Kimpton Grand Roatan, and his development is Los Sueños, or the dreams. So we're trying to make dreams happen for the people in Honduras via corporate philanthropy.
That's very cool. And when did that start? It's only a couple of years, is that right?
Well, actually, it started in 2010 when I went on a mission trip, and I went to a really small city called Tupacente, which is about 4 hours away from Tegucigalpa, which is the capital city. And there's an orphanage called the Children's Rescue Mission. So I went there in 2010. That's where it started. And a few things happened to me there that, really are a God thing. I mean, there was only one way to understand it, and I won't go into details, but there was a bunch of signs that God wanted me to help the people and find a way. And so I started donating money, like most people, right? I mean, but when you give money, it really has only short-term benefits, and you have to, to keep, giving them money. So what we wanted to do was to build a business in the country. And then the key question was, what type of business? Because you can have a triple bottom line here. You can help the farmers who grow it. You can, the people that are employed in the facility, and a percentage of revenues goes to building homes and schools. So 2010 is when it started. And then I met my partner here in Chicago, of all places. And I think it was probably 2021 or 2022.
Okay. And he just happened to own the 5-star hotel down in Honduras, or no, Roatan.
Yeah, well, actually, my partner in the business, I mean, I should clarify, there's my co-founder, right, David Musad, who actually owned the still, right, that was in a city called Santa Barbara, California, or Santa Barbara, Honduras, not California, and we've relocated that to Comiagua, which is the former capital of Honduras. But that's my co-founder partner. My partner, as far as the Abundant Life Foundation, owns the Grand. So, and this is really what they call corporate philanthropy. So typically when you think of philanthropy, For example, there was a major gift, just like 160 million given to the City of Hope, which is a healthcare institution in Southern California. And that's typically, by a very wealthy individual to try to get a cure for pancreatic cancer.
Mm,
Corporate philanthropy is different. Corporate philanthropy is really a very exciting part of the field, right, of giving, and it's through product sales. So
mm,
instead of coming out of your donor advisory fund, which, you get tax deduction, which is fantastic, or other means, right, whether it's tax advantage or not, those are very volatile because they're linked to the benefactor, right? And the benefactor may die, the children might change their focus, for example. Maybe the benefactor just changes his mind. But when
hmm
you have a business and has a contract and agreement that says a percentage of revenues, not profits, by the way, but revenues,
yeah,
that's important.
yeah,
Um, you have an opportunity to fund a cause on an ongoing basis. So you can imagine if it was Tito's, right? If it was Tito's and a percentage of their revenues was going to a 501(c)(3), you can
yeah,
imagine the impact that you could have.
yeah, yeah. Very cool. Very cool. All right, Scott, let's shift gears and do a little mathematics so our friends all around the world can get to know you through our happy formula. It's simple, but it's very powerful. It goes like this: power plus purpose equals happy. So let's start with power. What are your personal practices for building up all the power that you need to get things done, whether it's physically, mentally, financially, spiritually, emotionally? In other words, Scott, what do you do on a regular basis to create all the power you need to take really good care of yourself and your loved ones and still have plenty left over so you can be a giver to others?
Oh, power, that's a simple one. It's Jesus for me, because really that's where all my energy comes from. That's where my drive comes from. That's where the doors are open. That's where the windows are open, all that. So
Mm,
without Jesus, I don't think any of this would happen. I mean, I got off a plane in 2010 and I got approached. I didn't even want to go on. Actually, I didn't even want to go on the mission trip. I was really reluctant. Almost got forced to go down. And I
mm,
went down and a kid came up to me with a Michigan State basketball t-shirt.
ah,
And I went to Michigan State. So it was just like the
oh,
beginning. Yeah.
jeez.
Yeah. So you can imagine what the odds are, right? So it's just God's way of it was God's way of welcoming me, and the
Yeah,
needs are vast and the helpers are few, right? So I think
yeah.
God just said, hey, but yeah, that's where my power comes from. Yeah.
Well, I want you to, so let's dive in that just a little bit. I've thought about this idea of power, and spiritual is part of the five that I listed: financial, mental, physical, and financial, and spiritual, and emotional. But so there's a difference between earthly power and spiritual power. So earthly finances and earthly power, it's finite. You can give money, but when you give money, you have to replenish it. And when it gets used, it has to be replenished. Physical fitness, mental fitness, all has to be replenished. But spiritual power, spiritual energy, the more you use, the more you have. It's really an infinite source of power. So can you talk about the difference between how you use earthly power and how you use spiritual power?
Well, one of the things, the misnomers about having a company like this, they're a public benefit corporation out of Delaware. So, any type of investors are investing in a US based company, not a Honduran company. From my banking perspective, I do a lot of work in corporate structuring, and it's really important to have that in place, right? But at the end of the day, a lot of people are like, oh, you're a public benefit corporation. So, you really don't want to make a lot of money, right? And it's absolute the opposite,
Yeah,
right? Because it's
yeah,
not the love of money, right? It's what you do with the money,
yep,
right? I mean,
100%.
and yeah, and giving it away. So that's the key. And I've made a commitment to the Lord not to take a dime out of this company. I mean, think about
Mm,
that for a second. So I am an equity, I'm a shareholder, but I'm not, God's blessed me in my day job, right? I
yep.
don't, it's time to give back, especially on the second half of life, right? So from a physical side, well, listen, you got to keep yourself fit, right?
Hmm.
Exercise, nutrition, you got to take care of your body. And as a banker, we work a lot of hours, so there's a lot of stress, right? But God's been able to allow me to use the same skills or some of the similar skills from my banking career to help raise money and do corporate partnerships, do
Yep.
budgets and valuation models and all that fun stuff that you need to do to have a
Yeah.
success. And on the spiritual side, it's usually, Bible study, church, community,
Yeah.
prayer, right?
Yeah.
Those would be the basis of my, on the spiritual side.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Let's move on to my favorite power generating concept. It's called a Kaizen state of mind. And it's this beautiful Japanese idea that small incremental improvements add up over time to yield great big results. And I love it, Scott, because it's based on mindset, not circumstance. Kaizening life is knowing that there's always something I can do better tomorrow than today. And for me, it creates an optimistic, gentle, but very powerful and continuous uplifting of my life day after day after day. So, Scott, how does Kaizening your life help you increase your power to continuously become more so you can continuously give more?
Well, this is a great concept. I actually lived in Tokyo for a little bit, not a
Ah,
long time, but like 2 or 3 months. And so I really got to know the Japanese culture. And I didn't know about this, by the way, this term.
you
And
did or did not?
I did not.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it's very powerful. And I think, Dr. Wayne Dyer, was very influential. I don't know if you know who Dr. Wayne Dyer
I
is.
do. I've been reading his book for the last 10 years.
Yeah, so he really changed me a lot because
Yeah.
it's basically about a miracle mindset and controlling your thoughts or observing your thoughts, right? It's kind of a
Mhm.
progression. Then it's emptying your thoughts. And then so that's kind of like where a lot of people try to get with meditation,
Mhm.
right? Which you need for rejuvenation. And so if you can do that each day, I think that's incredibly important, right, for each person. I mean, not only
Yeah.
to reduce your blood pressure, right, and your adrenaline, to lower your stress hormones, but to get to peak performance, you're
Yep.
going to have some mental discipline.
100%. Yeah, and when you're empty like that and ready to go and kind of supercharged, that's when you can really tap into creativity and you can tap into those to new ideas. And if you're not getting yourself emptied, you're starting the next day with all the stuff you left the day before with, and
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
clutters your life and your mind. Okay, let's explore purpose. That's the second element of our happy formula. And I've observed that the big major transformations of life, those discoveries of purpose, often sadly come from devastation. Addiction, abuse, disease, death, disaster, something awful strips life to its core, resulting in a big and often unexpected change. However, in my book, Turning Inspiration into Action, I share the transformational process that I've used to discover the purpose of my life using inspiration. So, how about you, Scott? Was there a specific moment or event or crisis or inspiration that revealed to you the God given purpose you were meant to live?
Well, early in life, I was raised in a broken marriage. Like my parents got divorced when I was 9. So there was a lot of devastation. It was really an ugly divorce, right? It
Mm,
wasn't one of those, that you hear
mm,
about. Some of them go really
yeah,
well. So I grew up with a lot of instability, right? Being a lower middle class, whatnot. And that's when I accepted Jesus, right? At that time, because I knew that I needed a heavenly father because, my earthly parents, so, but actually it was the best thing ever happened to me in a way because it strengthened me, and all that about, we should rejoice in our sufferings, right?
yeah,
Consider it pure joy, right? There's plenty of
yeah,
verses out there, but that's where where I've got my determination and and grit, you
yeah.
know, and so that was that. And then as a banker, where I was talking about like working a lot of hours and stuff. So I've been in the hospital 2 or 3 times with chest pains or some kind of a cardiovascular issue. For example, recently I just lost 35 pounds.
Ah,
Um,
good.
just from so great things can come out of a crisis, right?
Hmm.
And it really sharpens the saw and gets your attention. So for purpose wise, my purpose is basically to serve God, and usually that means serving others. So you're either serving yourself, like in sales, you're either selling or being sold, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
either serving yourself, you're serving others, right? So I want to serve others, and my partner David Dashner is his name, wealthy oil and gas executive out of Austin, Texas, who owns the Kimpton managed Grand Rotan, the only 5-star hotel
mm,
in Honduras. It's guys like him. I mean, he's serving people. That's what he does. I mean, he could just be jet setting around if he wanted to,
Yeah.
right? But he's
Yeah.
feeding, housing,
Awesome.
schooling, and spreading the gospel. And no
Awesome.
wonder he's prosperous. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not a prosperity
Yeah.
preaching guy, honestly, because and I do think that God does bless you in that way. But it is amazing to see how amazingly successful he's been. The more he gives away, the more he gets, and
That's
he can't give it away fast enough. I mean,
yeah,
it's unbelievable.
that's that spiritual power. The more it's like
Yeah.
love, the more you give, the more you have to give. Well, so in terms of purpose, uh, uh, troubled young family life. Then I think I noticed from your resume that you got into the financial services and banking and spent a lot of time there as an employee. So I'm anxious to know what was the catalyst to go from employee to entrepreneur and be doing your own thing, number one. And number two, I want you to take us back to the raising spirits and the real move into the philanthropy business. What was the catalyst for that? Because those both seem to me are purpose driven.
Yeah, it was interesting. So I was having the typical career path, I started off sales rep in pharmaceutical industry, diagnostics, and then, like sales manager, head of business development. Then I went into investment banking, and it was great. But the entrepreneurial thing just came from the standpoint that I always wanted to, create my own company. I always felt kind of stifled, and I was kind of full of myself, actually. I'll be honest. I was like, oh man, I'm better than this. I shouldn't have to be in this bureaucracy. So, some of it was foolishness, but some of it was actual, I was really driven, and the entrepreneurship fit me really well. But it's a journey. It's a tough journey. It's a tough journey. I'm serious. I mean,
Yeah.
weekends, nights, people are having fun. You're working hard. And, I knew I had to create a business in Honduras. When I went on that mission trip, by the way, it wasn't your typical mission trip. It wasn't, which are all good, by the way, build a building, build a well, whatever. This was actually meeting with foreign dignitaries and domestic dignitaries. And we had
Mm,
a film crew to do a reality show after the post-depression in
mm,
2009, the Great Depression there, and the financial depression, whatever they call it. But bottom line was we were going to do a reality show, and I didn't even know it. But the
mm.
but the whole thing was take displaced Wall Street executives, put them in a village. This is like Survivor on steroids, and then have them bond with the people and figure out entrepreneurially what, like the Grand Mean model with microfinance, what these people could do
Yeah.
because they have to work. People need
Yeah.
to work. You don't want
Yes,
to give
sir.
them money.
Yes,
And that's
sir.
how I got this idea of, why am I just giving my money? I should be building a business. But then the next thing is what business can you build? And I'll be, I have Southern Baptists in my family. I am not the biggest, I'm to some of them, not the biggest, top of their list right now. But
Making vodka for the world.
correct, correct, correct. And even from a health perspective, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
but everything in moderation. I always felt like Jesus,
100%.
actually drinking wine, not grape juice. But some people will argue. It's
Right.
fine. It's we
Yeah.
can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
But I will say though that the good thing is that I picked the opportunity that came my way. That's a door that came open. It's not something I created. It just came into my wheelhouse, and nothing else came. Nothing else came, right? Here's the thing. Raising Spirits is a holding company. It's not all about vodka. It's all about spirits. It's got, for example, we make it out of the breadfruit tree, which is an indigenous tree that grows throughout Central America because of the high solar radiation. One tree feeds a family of four for a whole calendar year.
Hmm.
It yields fruit 5 or 6 times a year. And they use it to make, it's not glamorous. My wife is Polish, for example, so, a lot of potatoes and stuff like that. Not glamorous, but it has some nutrition and people eat it, and it's a staple food. Well, we use it. It makes our vodka taste a little sweeter because everything at the equator is sweeter.
Mm,
You go Belvedere, Grey Goose, and they're great vodkas, by the way. But they're all at the, northern Russia, France, Poland, whatever. And what's interesting is that the margins on spirits are extremely high. And a lesson that I learned was from the cacao industry, because we have a cacao vodka, a chocolate vodka, which is very unique. The cacao that grows in Honduras is some of the best in the world, right? Because it actually was part of the Mayan and Azteca culture, right, back in the day. But the bottom line here is you could pick a business, but unless the business is located in the country, okay? If you're just shipping the cacao from New Guinea, right, in Ivory Coast to Switzerland, and all the chocolate makers are getting the return. The people are not getting the return. Raw
Yeah.
materials do not typically change. If they did, then bananas would have changed Honduras. They
Right.
did, right?
Right.
So it's profit margin, and that
Yeah.
profit margin has to be redirected into corporate philanthropy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay. And then just one last thing on purpose. And you mentioned it early in your opening, about the calling from God in Honduras, meeting the kid with did you say Michigan State?
Yeah, Michigan State.
That's
Yeah.
better. I'm an Ohio. I was born on the Ohio State University, so we can still be friends. But if it was the
Yeah.
University of Michigan, we'd still be friends.
Well, yeah, we're probably allies. There's no love lost
That's
there.
right.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
allies. So I want you to talk about what were the signs that you had, and then for our audience, why a lot of people will detect a door that's opening, but they won't walk through it. So what were the signs, and why did you just decide to walk through it and change your life with it?
Well, in 2010, I had a Christian. I lived in New York City for a while. I have a friend over there, and he kept calling me saying, "I just, feel God is telling me. I feel led to tell you that you need to go on this trip." And he
Mm,
wouldn't stop. So
mm.
he called me once, twice a week. And finally, after 3 months of this, I just said, "Hey, listen, if I go, will you stop calling me?
Yeah,
You know,
right.
I can't take it anymore, right?" So that's why I was reluctant, right? And I didn't know anybody. This is called the Canaan Society, or there's a Christian group out east, that's really it's more like non-denominational group. But
Mm,
I flew down there. I didn't know anybody. I'm not kidding. I got off the plane. I'm looking for a sign, someone to hold. I mean, it's not like I went down with a group
yeah,
of buddies. Okay.
yeah,
And I walk outside of the airport to Tegucigalpa, and the first kid that came up to me was wearing a Michigan State Spartan basketball, and I'm a big, Tom Izzo fan. So I'm just sitting there going, "You've got to be joking!" Like one
yeah.
of those jaw dropping, because
Uh,
the probability of that happening. So that's the way it started, and you're like, okay, you brush that off, and then I went into a Popeye's chicken, and the guy who was leading the mission said, you better eat up because next 2, 3 weeks, this isn't going to be gourmet, you know. And I just said to him, can I buy you lunch or something? It was a simple gesture, and he looked at me and he said, I think you're the guy. And I'm like, no, I'm not the guy. I'm really not. Right. And, it's kind of biblical, isn't it? Like, you're like, no, I'm not
mm,
interested.
mm,
But for whatever reason, he thought that I was going to have an impact. And it just kept, and stuff like that. There's like 3 or 4 things that happened during that trip. So
mm,
one of the things is sometimes it was scary flying down there. Then when it used to be that it was the second most dangerous airport in the world is in Tegucigalpa. The first one is by Mount Everest over there,
mm,
But
yeah,
this is the Himalayas. The second most dangerous is in Tegucigalpa. It has a cliff on the end, and they've lost a number of planes. And so when you enter in, you go between two mountains, and literally the plane can barely get its second. You land almost, I think it was like on one wheel, right? And then and the other one, and this is a 737.
like
So
an airline carrier too, because you
yeah,
got to
yeah, yeah.
stop.
But it was one of those things where it was like I stepped, not only I mean, I threw myself out the door. I didn't step out the door. And then what was so amazing is that God revealed all this stuff I would have never ever experienced if I wouldn't have even taken the first step. And for all
Yeah.
those that are listening, fear knocked on the door and faith answered, and nobody was there. That comes from Wayne Dyer. I mean,
Mm,
I mean, really, you just got to open up the door, and there's
yeah,
just nothing there, and then you step through.
yeah. Step
Isn't
through.
that powerful?
Yeah,
Yeah.
step through and out into the land. I call it the land of the unknown, and you don't know what's going to happen. And but if you're working it, very often my experience has been you'll end up in a place that you couldn't have dreamed of, but you're glad you're there.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
telling you, there were so many moments where the children, there was running away from the children. There was a monsoon, and I slipped on the water, and they were having trouble catching up to me, and like 30 kids jumped on top of me, and you're just sitting there and going, I would have never experienced that
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
would have been just staying in Chicago. So sometimes, and I'm not saying that, sometimes people take a chance, maybe it doesn't work out, but at the end of the day, if you take a chance on God, boy, you'll win every time.
Oh, very good. All right, Scott, thanks for that. Now let's take a quick commercial break so our sponsor can spread a little love with our audience. This Thanksgiving, let's make a difference for the people of Marshall, North Carolina. Hurricane Helene hit them hard, but together we can give something back. Join us for Project Thanksgiving in Marshall. It'll be a day of food, fun, and friendship dedicated to uplifting this resilient community. Your support can bring joy, hope, and an unforgettable Thanksgiving to those who need it most. Visit happyliving.com and click donate to make a difference. Let's come together to spread love, gratitude, and community spirit, one meal at a time. And we're back, and this is the Something Significant Show, and I'm your host, Matt Gersper. And my special guest star today is Scott Jordan. He's an experienced investment banker, C-level biotechnology executive, and a craft spirits entrepreneur. Since 2005, he's raised a lot of money, about $1 billion, helping innovative biopharmaceutical, diagnostic, and medical device companies make it through the capital-intensive research and development phases to deliver new and better solutions to the healthcare industry. But I'll tell you what got my attention was when he told me he was launching a public benefit corporation called Raising Spirits that we've been talking about, that's dedicated to creating opportunity and fighting poverty in Latin America with targeted business, community, and educational programs. Scott, I just love that you're bringing opportunity right to where the poverty lives. And I think you're going to love this article that I found called The Science Behind the Power of Giving. And it says that the act of giving itself can be a gateway to discovering your reason for being on the planet. It tells us that science says giving our time and talents and treasures is a powerful pathway to discovering purpose and overcoming difficulties and finding fulfillment and meaning in life. So I updated our formula. Power plus purpose plus giving equals really happy. So how about you, Scott? Has giving your time, talents, and treasure been a pathway for discovering your purpose, for getting past difficulties that you've faced, and for bringing real meaning into your life?
Yeah, absolutely. But initially it's tough. I'll be honest, because you're thinking about yourself. And then you're like, oh man, I gotta, once again go through that door. So you start giving, and then it gets infectious.
Mm,
Now you're kind of getting hooked to something great. And then it's what God designed, right? Because you have an addiction to something that's righteous, and to impact the children, to impact the families, to get them off the street. The worst thing down there well, first of all, we have a border crisis, right? We got a major border crisis. And it largely is from the Northern Triangle countries of El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras.
mm,
They don't have enough economic opportunity. And the best way to do that, to make it so that they stay in their countries, because most of them actually do want to stay. They actually don't want to make the trek through Mexico on a train with all the inherent dangers, is they want to work. But if they
yeah,
can't work and there's no prosperity, then they turn to gang violence and all that. So for us, we not only want to buy the breadfruit, the giving is what, right? It's building a company that can pay for the breadfruit, right? And
mm,
then they have money to feed their family. Then it's the people who work in your factory,
right.
right? Right. So now not only do they have money, but they're keeping themselves busy. Idle time, especially for men, is just absolutely devastating, right? It's
Yep.
devastating. And then lastly, you're taking a percentage of the revenues that could go to investors, and then you're putting it into a 501c where 100% goes to, and it's audited, and the money stays in the country, right? So the margins stay in the country. So that's pretty exciting. So that's how we're giving. But yeah, no, giving is it almost just frees you. It actually
Yeah.
frees you. That's all I can
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned something earlier that reminded me of a very similar walk that I went through. And I think you said that you were early in your career when you were going to become an entrepreneur is because you were full of yourself. And I know I was that same way too. And I read, it was actually in Wayne, I think a Wayne Dyer book, but anyways, I read this phrase um, about a story with Alexander the Great walking through and conquering all the world and running into some naked yogis. And to make this long story short, the army was trying to push the yogis out of the way for the great king to come through. And the yogi said to the soldier says, "Do you know who's coming? Alexander the king, the great is coming, and he's conquered the world. What have you conquered, naked yogi?" And the yogi says, "I've conquered the need to conquer the world." And
That's
boy,
cool.
when you get there, then it's about, okay, what can I do for others? It's all of a sudden you're looking out instead of in, and it changes your life, doesn't it, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, just think about it. We're here for, if we're lucky, 70, 80 years, and then there's eternity. I mean, if you put it in that light, eternity is a pretty long time. So
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know. If there's no U-Haul behind the hearse, I
That's it.
mean, none of these really rich people that I talk to, they're not taking anything with them, and they may
Correct.
give it to their kids, and that's a worthy endeavor, right?
Yep.
I respect that, but it's letting go and letting
Yep.
God.
Yep. Very
Basically.
good.
Yeah.
Very good. And so the science tells us that giving to others helps bring real meaning to our lives, which is interesting. And the joy that we feel from the fourth element of significance, that we say doing work that creates value for others, that confirms it. But there's something more to it than just the giving, Scott. And I believe that the real magic of life comes when you're giving from living in your purpose. So, Scott, the audience and I would like to know how it makes you feel to be happy living your life and giving to others through the work you were put on this planet to do. And the people all around you have taken notice. So just sit back and open your heart and have a listen to what people are saying about the impact that you're making on their lives by finding the magic of giving from living in your purpose. One person said, "Scott provides continuous positive forward momentum coupled with business understanding that is very critical to established and emerging biotech companies." Another said, "I'm always impressed with Scott's ability to create new opportunities and follow through with them." Another said, "He has an encyclopedic knowledge of the biotech space and is always up to date on detailed business transactions." Others said, "Scott is as tenacious as they come. He's effective and he's bright, a quick learner, tireless, persevering, hard worker, creative, adaptable, relentless." One person called you the James Brown of investment banking. I'm not sure what that means, but it sounds like a good compliment. And finally, one person said, "Scott is one of the hardest working and most highly ethical gentlemen I've ever had the pleasure to do business with, but also to call a friend." So, Scott, how does all that incredible love make you feel?
Oh, that's incredible. I mean, I don't know what to say. It just kind of chokes you up a little bit. I don't know. I recognize some of those. It's really great to be admired for hard work, but God is the bulldozer and I'm just the shovel. So,
Mm,
if I just try to dig and do a project without God, I'm just not going to be successful, right? So I just give God all the glory, in the good times and the bad times. And
yep,
there are a lot of bad times
yep,
for people in Honduras, and but like I said, out of tragedy, like they look at like on those nature shows, where the forest burns down, but it was necessary because it puts the nutrients in the soil.
yep.
you know, great things happen. But yeah, no, it's really humbling to hear some of that.
Yeah, and I didn't get I would love to have, maybe you can help us with this, but I couldn't pierce the Honduras veil. But can you share, just give us a couple of highlights of experiences that you've had, the impact that your effort, let's not just say you, but your effort with this Raising Spirits business has come back to you in the form of gratitude from a child or one of the country people or someone you've employed. Can you just give us a couple of those experiences, and
Yeah.
that it must just your heart just must burst when you
Well,
hear it.
some of it, we're early still, so we're not contributing as much as we will, right? Because we're a startup. But, the plans are all in place, to really, because of the 23 homes at Los Sueños, which is the 501c Abundant Life, that's what they're funding, right? Is And I had the opportunity of seeing the grand opening and see these families, specifically the mothers, right? I
Mm,
mean, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? These families are coming out of the ghettos. Their kids are, most of them are parasitic infested, right? They've
mm,
got all kinds of parasites and bacteria and
mm.
whatnot because of the living conditions. And you got this beautiful community that's been built, from David and the Lord. And to witness the mothers and the joy and the crying, and the kids now have their own room, and she's
Yeah,
got a stove, just the basics that we all
yeah,
we all take for granted, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
if you never had any of that stuff and you're worried about your children, and so that's amazing. So I think if God allows it and equips it and enables it, we're hoping that we can with product sales of Lazona, right? That we can which, by the way, Lazona, the name Lazona, because I lived in Miami a little bit last year to do some tastings and stuff. The word Lazona means local people.
hmm,
So the name of my vodka is actually, and I didn't name it, by the way,
hmm,
is actually representative of what's going on at Los Sueños, which is a group of individuals that live in a community that provides, strength and inspiration and comfort and
awesome.
security, right in a very, somewhat dangerous part of the world.
Yeah,
So it's funny how my vodka, it was almost like the name was way before I did any of
yeah,
this. And
yeah,
it's just reminding me that it is about the zone, the local people. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. And that's what this show is all about, is finding that magic in each of our lives. And it's available for each of us. That's what I believe, Scott. And it comes from this great big happy circle. It seems that giving your time, talents, and treasures is a powerful pathway for discovering your purpose. And then giving from living in your purpose brings a profound joy to your life, but also to the lives of those around you. So giving leads to purpose, and giving from purpose leads to joy. So to capture the entire exponential power of our happy formula, Scott, I've got to tweak it just a tiny bit more. To power times purpose times giving equals happy to the third power. And that's really, truly, deeply happy. Does that sound about right to you?
That's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
Very good. All right, let's wrap things up the lightning round. I love the power of words and the capacity for great quotes to change lives. So I'm going to read a few of my favorites and ask you to tell us what they mean to you, and just give us the first thing that pops into your mind, because we call this a lightning round.
Sure.
Here we go. This is from the great Peter Drucker. Efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right things.
Working with integrity and purpose.
Very good. This is from Paul Hawken. He said, relax, take your time, work, practice, and learn.
God is in control.
Very good. I'm interested in how you might fit your experience in innovation and invention with biotech into this quote. It's from G.K. Chesterton. And he said, before you tear down a fence, found out why it was put up in the first place.
um, I would say that yeah, that's interesting. I would just say that the success factors are universal, between my banking practice and my startup, right?
Very good. Okay, this is from Robert Greene. He said, mastery is not a function of genius or talent. It's a function of time and intense focus applied to a particular field of knowledge.
I would just say determination, perseverance, never give up,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, grit.
yeah. From Albert Einstein, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we use to create them.
I would say, start with a miracle mindset, mental picturing, like it's already completed. It's already a multi-billion-dollar company.
Mhm. Very good. This is from Denzel Washington. He says, it's not just what you have, but it's what you do with what you have. Who are you lifting up? Who are you making better?
Those are, some, solid, God principles, putting others first,
Yeah,
loving others the way you would like to be loved.
yeah, yeah. And this is from Goth. It's our show anchor. He said, "Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now."
I would just say surrender and, surrender to God, and you can achieve, great things.
Yeah, if we surrender to God, we can achieve all that He has in store for us, right?
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. All right, very good. Now, folks, it's your chance to be a giver too. If you can hear my voice and you were inspired by today's show with Scott Jordan, please share a little love with our incredible broadcast team by giving what you can to WITV7. They're a 501c3 charity on a mission to educate, empower, and encourage. They do good works with your kindness. Scott, I love your triple bottom line vision that includes not only profit, but also a company's impact on people and our planet too. And I admire your commitment to breaking generational cycles of poverty in Latin America through long-term business, community, and educational development. And I'm super happy that you've shared your generous, purpose-fired, triple bottom line entrepreneurial spirit on our show today. Will you take just a minute or two and share any parting remarks you'd like to leave with our audience?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. This has been a real blessing to be involved in this talk. I would say that wherever you choose to give, the main point is giving is power, like you talked about, and that happiness to the third, exponential power,
Mm,
and fear and scarcity, right, prevent people from stepping out. You can give your time, you can give your mind, you can give your money, because everybody thinks giving is money, but
right.
serving a lot of times is just you,
Yep.
right? You yourself. And so a lot of times when you're down in Honduras, you're not giving any money. You're just helping people, right? And I just feel like you'll find yourself. You'll find yourself, and you'll free yourself from materialism, and I think that you'll get closer to God. And so I would encourage all your readers to just to get that power you were talking about today. The purpose, the power, the happiness.
Yep.
Giving really is the key, and you've heard this before. A lot of people talk about it, but it's easy to say, but it's hard to take that first step, get on that first flight, right, down to some place
Yep.
that you've never been to, and you're afraid of maybe going, but you're going to go for it, and then God's going to meet you at the airport, and He's going to be wearing a T-shirt from your alma mater.
Perfect. Perfect. I didn't do anything when I saw my sign, but I had a very similar sign on a vacation trip over to Indonesia, and I was in the middle of this little tiny island that was a boat ride away from any kind of almost civilization, and so out in the middle of nowhere in Indonesia, and the kids running around with an Ohio State Buckeyes T-shirt. I thought, huh, and there was birds flew over. There was something I was supposed to get from that. I didn't. I'm glad you got yours.
Yeah.
But the signs are everywhere. And so thank you, Scott. I really appreciate that. And I also want to thank WITV7 for hosting and promoting our show so we can keep interviewing inspiring guest stars like Scott and reaching folks just like you, ready to create your own extraordinary lives. And most especially, thank you, viewers and listeners. You'll find links to social media and all things Scott Jordan. Find him, friend him, learn about opportunities for investing in his latest breakthrough technologies and supporting him in his efforts down in Honduras, too. You'll find all the links in the show notes. From me to you, dear friends, I love you and I want you to be really, truly, deeply happy too. So go to happyliving.com right now and download our free mini but mighty ebook. It's called Making Your Mark of Significance. And once you read the book, and it only takes about 30 minutes, then give some thought to what we can do together, you and me, to improve the happy of your world, one person at a time. Till next time, I'm Matt Gersper. You are awesome, and this is the Something Significant Show.